There can be no doubt that carp fishing is by far the most popular branch of angling today. It's not difficult to see why either. If we ignore the Wells catfish, a brute that was introduced to the UK relatively recently, the carp is our largest freshwater fish. It's big, strong, and distributed throughout the country. 50 years ago, you'd have been very lucky to catch one, because few waters held carp, but today they are within easy reach of everyone. It seems hard to imagine now, but when Richard Walker caught a 44-pound carp from Redmire Pool on the Welsh borders in 1952, he not only established a new British record, he sparked a revolution. In one strike, Walker captivated the imagination of a generation and changed the way we fish forever. Back then, carp were regarded as practically uncatchable. How wrong people were. Carp are not that difficult to catch. You just need to understand the right techniques and baits required to fool them. Of course, these baits and the various items of tackle simply hadn't been discovered or invented back then. Today, it's a multi-million-pound industry, and everything you need to catch carp is widely available from any good tackle shop. But before we lunge forth with various bits of high tech, what of the fish themselves? There's much controversy these days about what is a British carp. The reason being that unscrupulous fish dealers and fishery owners have illegally imported large fish from abroad, mainly France, where big carp are readily available. These fish have not had health checks. Unfortunately, they can carry diseases to which our native stocks have no resistance, and this has resulted in massive fish losses. The problem is made worse by anglers who steal fish from one water and introduce them to another, hoping to create their own carp fishery, only for this stolen fish to infect the existing stocks, including other species. It's a nightmare scenario that is reaping havoc throughout the country, and it needs to be halted if this kind of fishing is to survive. So what is a British carp? The answer in a nutshell is that there's no such thing. All carp in the UK are descendants of imported fish at some point in their ancestry, because the carp is not a native of these isles. Monks first brought them to England as a food source in the late 14th century, rearing them in monastery stew ponds. Of course, they were transferred or escaped to other waters in time, and gradually spread across the UK. These fish were mainly what we now call wildies, and didn't grow to any great size. That all changed a little over 100 years ago with the introduction of a strain called the king carp. The king carp were fast-growing specimen that reached previously unheard of proportions. Foremost in the introduction of king carp was a Surrey trout farmer called Donald Leaney, who was the main supplier of carp in the UK between 1925 and 1955. It was Leaney who introduced the very carp that Walker caught that unwittingly changed the future of freshwater angling. Carp are widespread across Europe, particularly to the east of the continent, where they're cultivated as a food crop. Though still farmed for food in western mainland Europe, countries like France and Holland have become meccas for travelling carp anglers who spend their annual holidays in pursuit of this fascinating species of fish. When thousands of European immigrants arrived in the United States, they could not believe that there were no carp, a fish they'd traditionally eaten as a celebratory meal at holidays and on religious festivals. Pressure was put on the government to allow the importation of carp, and permission was granted for what was a mere netful. Just 83 fish were imported from Germany in 1872, of which only 5 survived. What happened afterwards is nothing short of remarkable. The fish were used as breeding stock and then sold around the country at incredibly high prices. Inevitably, some escaped, found the land of plenty exactly to their liking, and began a population explosion that beggars belief. Today, carp infest practically every lake, canal and river system, from Canada to Mexico. Interestingly, the carp introduced to America were a mixture of mirror and common carp. Today, nearly all the fish in the States and Canada are commons. Mirrors and commons are exactly the same generic species. It's just that mirrors are selectively bred to make them easier to prepare for the table. Left alone in the wild, the American fish have reverted back to their original scale patterns prior to being selectively bred. Dick Walker's 44-pound carp stood apart as the British rod caught record for 20 years. Chris Yates came within 3 ounces of claiming Walker's crown with another Redmire monster in 1972, but Walker's record would stand until the end of the decade, when the same Chris Yates would lay claim to his place in carp angling history with the first British 50. Yates's fish, at a staggering 51 pounds 8 ounces, smashed the record out of sight. How fitting then that the fish came from Redmire. Though tales were told of a legendary Redmire fish of immense proportions, Walker estimated its weight at 60 pounds, it was never caught. Whether a 60-pound fish really could remain a mystery in a mere 3-acre pool is debatable. There have been many other tales of secret waters, forgotten lakes, and private paradises where monsters lurked. But since Yates broke through the 50-pound barrier, the carp record has steadily risen, with fish from a variety of waters. In 1999 alone, 9 fish bigger than Yates's were reported in the angling press. Today, the record has passed through the 60-pound barrier and could yet creep a little higher, although it's generally accepted that this is close to the ceiling weight that a carp can attain in the latitude of the British Isles. Consequently, the tales of mythical fish spoken about in whispered tones by the early carp pioneers are seldom heard today. There may still be undiscovered monster carp out there awaiting discovery, probably in some giant windswept pit, or more likely in a huge inland sea like Rutland water, but the term monster has effectively been redefined. To be described as a mythical monster today, a carp would have to weigh upwards of 65 or maybe even 70 pounds. Certainly a fish of that calibre is unlikely to be found in a forgotten pond on a country estate. But it doesn't stop carp anglers dreaming. Nor does it stop them looking. There are thousands of waters in the UK that contain carp. The choice is overwhelming, so where do you start? The best advice is to recognise your personal limitations. Take stock of your experience, the time available to you, and very importantly, your budget. Don't spend a fortune on an exclusive syndicate ticket if it means you then can't afford the bait required to catch fish there. Don't choose a cheap water if it's so far away that you cannot afford the fuel to get there on a regular basis. If you can fish only one day, or say one 24-hour session each week, it's probably better that you don't plump for a rock-hard venue where 1 or 2 fish a season is a good result. There are loads of waters up and down the UK that offer different levels of difficulty at reasonable cost. Try and work out what it is that you want to catch. Do you want to catch one big fish, even if that means loads of blank trips? Do you like loads of action and care little about how big the fish are? What size of fish will make you a happy carper? Doubles? A 20? 30s? A new British record? Make your choice carefully and be prepared to reconsider if you fail to match up to your aspirations. Most people fall into the trap of overestimating their abilities at times. Kick off with a trip to your nearest tackle shop that caters for carp anglers. Have a chat with the staff and tell them what you're looking for. You're potentially worth a small fortune to a tackle shop over the course of your life. The smart dealer will recognise this and go out of his way to keep you coming back to spend your hard-earned cash. You might also consider joining the Carp Society. Meetings are held all over the country during the winter months, at which star guests will give talks and slideshows. You'll meet fellow carp anglers from your own area and soon be swapping information on waters, baits and rigs. Some regional organisers hold workshops and teach-ins where you can learn techniques and tactics. Thirdly, you should read everything about carping that you can lay your hands on. The weekly papers are good for learning which waters are fishing well. The monthlies are packed with technical articles, while books give an insight into the minds of top anglers. It used to be suggested that carp could only be caught during the summer months, but nowadays they're caught all year round. Carp fishing in winter is not easy, but by picking more active waters, you can still expect some action.
£11, 10 ounces.
Spring is the time when the pace picks up. As the water temperature rises, fish become more active. They often feed heavily in springtime as they shrug off the lethargy of winter and begin their preparations for spawning. Female fish in particular need plenty of protein if they're to produce thousands of eggs. Shallow water is the quickest to warm, so avoid those really deep lakes at this time of year that are slower to waken.
And off she goes. Thank you very much.
You'll often see fish drifting into very shallow water in late March and April as they soak up the sun during the warmest part of the day. We still get frosts at this time of year, and the fish will often head for deeper water as evening approaches. Come May and June, the days are longer, and we see a dramatic increase in water temperatures. Fish will be seen cruising in the upper layers of the water, and they can often be fooled by surface baits. The months of July and August can be difficult. Dissolved oxygen levels fall in hot weather, and feeding spells may be brief. The periods around dawn and dusk can be good, but watch out. Fish in different waters develop their own preferences. Some waters are day waters, others are better at night.
And look at that. Come on. Yes.
Autumn is the time when carp seem to realise winter is coming and set about packing on a bit of weight to see them over the colder months. Many top anglers regard the autumn months as being the best of the year. As we move into winter, some waters switch off altogether. Busy waters that see lots of anglers who keep dripping in bait seem to be most reliable in the cold. If the food supply is cut off, a carp can shut down its metabolism and lay mostly dormant through the coldest months with no ill effects. If you want to continue catching carp in the winter, keep some bait going into your lake. It keeps the fish interested. The decisions you make on arrival at a water will have a big influence on what you catch, or indeed, if you catch at all. Take your time and don't be in too much of a hurry to start. Have a walk round to see if you can spot any activity or feeding fish. If there's a wind, take special care to study the margins into which the waves are being pushed. Carp follow a warm wind and can often be found feeding within feet of the windward bank. Conversely, if there's a freezing cold wind blowing, carp prefer to sit on the back of it in calm water. Use your eyes and look out for signs of rolling, leaping, bow waving, bubbling or cloudy water. If you can find fish, you're halfway to catching them. If no fish can be found, you'll then have to fall back on watercraft. Rushes, lily pads, overhanging bushes and trees are obvious features, but by plumbing, which is a system for testing depth, you can find hidden features like gravel bars, plateau, gullies, silt beds, weeds, clear patches, and so on. Be methodical in your approach to your chosen water. When you're actually fishing, it's equally important to keep your eyes open. Look for signs of fish moving in other areas of the lake. If you're not catching, yet you can see fish elsewhere, think seriously about a move. 10 minutes in the right spot is worth 10 hours in the wrong one. Stalking is a good option in summer, especially on clear waters. Take one rod, one net, unhooking mat, and a pocket full of baits, and sneak around looking for fish. When you find one, you can try flicking a bait into its path. Stalking rewards the patient, quiet angler. Beware though, any sudden movement, poor cast or heavy footfall will spoil your chances of success.
Look, they're taking around. I know if I get there, I'm going to get a take of some sort.
It's got to go in a minute.
Hopefully the wind's going to whip it round a bit. Get right underneath that bush now. There's a fish going to take it. And I've got a bow, so am I going to be able to hit it?
She's got to take that.
Can you believe it? I'd have wagered money on that one being hit.
Right on the nose. Do you want some round there?
Nah, I don't think we keep on feeding the top there, Carl.
Yeah, okay.
So I won't be that lucky again. Oh. Then they pop out 5 feet in front of me.
They're starting to come out a bit now.
I said it has happened before. I can literally cast 10 feet to them when they do show. Let me just back up there. The wind's dropped right now. Well, compared to what it is, you can get them going. We'll get them.
That's the one.
That's where I want to be. There's the fish, and we're in.
Well
Look
done.
at that.
Definitely on.
Just got to get it in that spot again. I come out and I say, look at all those chummies out there.
Nice one.
And they go straight for that estuary one and they hit it hard. It's just been really soaked and dunked. I've never tried it on the bottom. Perhaps I should be trying it on my bottom baits because these carp here certainly like it.
Okay, you're going to
It's not
land
the
it down
biggest
here?
one. It's not the biggest one. He's not done yet though, Carl.
No. Just get the net set.
It does. It just gives me such a buzz. It really does.
When you hear the it's when you hear the line tear through the water, isn't it? It's that
I
noise.
equate it to like when you're water skiing, you pull it up, it's like that. It whizzes out the water. It's really, I don't know.
Beats the bite along.
I've been fishing for
I don't know.
too
mate.
many years probably. Here comes the fish to the net. You got him, Carl? He's there. Well, it's not going to be shy of a double.
There's tea.
Eh? I'm saying, I don't know, I've been doing I've certainly been picking up the doubles lately.
She's certainly
I
getting.
honestly believe I'll get a 20 one day. Alright.
Yeah, I've got the net turned round.
Look at that scale pattern. And stolen my lovely cork ball, my lucky cork ball, but at the mere price of a cork ball, I'm glad with that fish.
If you intend to set out your stall to catch carp by design, you'll need to equip yourself accordingly. This wouldn't have been easy a few years ago, but the massive growth in interest in carp fishing has seen an explosion in the number of companies that make tackle designed specifically to help you catch carp. There are two types of rod carried by modern carp anglers: fishing rods and plumbing spodding rods. Fishing rods tend to be 12 or 13 foot long. The longer rods are normally used for long-range fishing and are built on either through-action or fast taper blanks. Through-action rods bend progressively down to the butt section and are really enjoyable tools on which to play fish. They're certainly more forgiving for the less experienced angler. Fast taper rods have all their action in the top section. The stiff butt makes them ideal for casting heavy leads over long distances. Rod strengths are measured in test curves. For general carping on small waters, a through-action rod of 2 to 2¼ pound test is ideal. For bigger waters, where long-range fishing is required, or when you want to use heavier leads and PVA bags filled with pellets or boilies, a fast taper rod of 2 3/4 to 3.5 pound test curve is best. The most popular rods sold today tend to be 2 3/4 pound test curve models. In addition to this, most carp anglers carry 2 further rods. These are a plumbing rod, used for finding depths and underwater features, and a spodding rod. This is used for baiting up. Most anglers make a straight choice between 2 types of reel. A conventional sized bait runner type reel that offers a free spool facility while waiting for a run, or a big pit type of reel. These reels have long bucket spools designed to hold a lot of line and are particularly good for casting over long distances. This latter choice has gained an ever-growing following and is now usually available with a free spool facility. Few carp anglers fish with a main line of less than 8 pounds breaking strain. 12 pounds is seen as the average, but many anglers are now taking advantage of the thinner, high-tech lines by stepping up to 14 or 16 pound breaking strain. It's important to consider knot strength and abrasion resistance when choosing a reel line. You should also change it on a regular basis, certainly at least once each season. Check your line for wear on a regular basis by holding it between finger and thumb while you reel in after a long cast. Because anglers are allowed to fish with up to 4 rods on some waters, a fashion for rod pods has developed. Rod pods are certainly a neat way to line up your armoury, but there are a few watch-outs if you're thinking of buying one. A pod needs to be stable, or it is worse than useless. The heavier, stainless steel pods are best, because they're not affected by strong winds, and when you get a run, only the bite alarm beneath the rod that has a take is activated. Some anglers prefer to fish with bank sticks instead of a pod. By pressing bank sticks firmly into the bank, you can create a very stable rod support system, even when using buzzer bars. Buzzer bars enable you to set up 2 or 3 rods on just one front and one rear rod rest. However, it can be very difficult to push bank sticks into compressed gravel, hence the popularity of pods on hard-fished pits. Bite alarms enable us to fish round the clock. You can still fish effectively even when asleep, providing of course that your alarm is reliable. It's not worth skipping on quality. Good models let you control sensitivity, volume, tone, and have a latching light. A latching light is a small LED that will light up and stay on for 10 seconds or so, even if the audible alarm has let out only a single beep. Often this will give you prior warning of a take when a fish brushes the line, causing these single bleeps. The LED enables you to identify which rod is affected, and you can be ready to strike the instant your bait is taken. All carp anglers require 2 essential items of tackle: a suitably large landing net and a padded unhooking mat. At a pinch you can get away with a 30-inch triangular net, but a 36 or 42-inch net is a much better choice if the fish you are hoping to catch run to upper double figures or larger. For fish bigger than 20 pounds, a 36-inch net should be regarded as an absolute minimum. There are many different landing nets on the market today, but you need to consider two things very carefully. Your net needs to have a heavy-duty spreader block. Normally made from aluminium, the spreader block is screwed into the landing net pole and retains the removable arms that support the net's mesh. The arms are constructed in this removable manner so that when you land a fish, you can easily and quickly dispose of the pole, roll the net around the arms to condense it, then lift the fish straight onto the unhooking mat. If you didn't do this, sooner or later you would break the pole against a tree or some other obstacle. The second point you need to consider is the pole itself. The pole has to be long enough to reach the fish, but not too long as to be unwieldy. It is a big net after all, and the fish in it will hopefully be heavy. About 6 foot long is ideal, but make sure it's a strong pole. Most poles these days are made of heavy fiberglass or carbon fibre. Either will do, only your budget can decide which is the right choice for you. Most fisheries insist on anglers using unhooking mats. They're a cushioned pad that supports and protects a carp while you're unhooking it. Remember that a carp is a big fish that's capable of causing itself considerable damage on dry land. An unhooking mat is designed to support the weight of a fish, prevents it from cutting its skin on gravel or stones, and makes sure that any scales stay intact. If the fish flaps around, it won't break the rays of its tail fin or hurt its eyes. You should always use one, for the fish's sake. Now it's time to get down to the business end of carp fishing, the end rig. For a change of voice and an excellent demonstration of a good all-round approach, it's over to carp expert Simon Pomeroy, live at Pallington Lakes.
The most important thing I've found in carp fishing is to have a competent rig, one that you're confident with. Confidence is a huge thing, but the rig must work. And I'm just going to show you the rig I consistently use and consistently catch fish on, of whatever size, in this country and abroad. And it's the basic knotless knot on the hook of my choice. First thing to do is get your hook link. Now I'm just using a mono style hook link with a loop at one end, which is going to be from where I'm going to insert my buoy stop. I always do this, and this I find very important. I say the rig is so crucial. Get it right, don't bodge it up. Boilie needle through your boilie. Going back to our loop we had earlier, just put your needle through the loop and pulling your boilie actually onto your hook link. Do it in this stage, because what you'll do is end up with a hair of the right length. The loop, as I said earlier, insert the boilie stop, and hey presto, that's just going to secure your boilie onto your rig. And that's all we've done so far. The link, the boilie stop. Next thing at the stage is using your hook. And the hook I'm using, the preference is down to yourself and what you're confident in. It's a size 8 hook for the waters I generally fish in this country. Obviously it could be different when I'm fishing abroad. But that's a Carpus offset nailer barbless. Now with the knotless knot on the hair rig, you must always basically work through the back of the hook. So through the back of the eye, place the end of the rig. Just drop your arm down, all the way through. And that's the effect you've got so far. Now we're going to tie this on. I know for me to tie this on, I need to come off about 5mm off the bottom of the hook. That's going to be the length of my hair. And I'm going to wrap this mono around the hook. Now I know I'm going to go around 24 times. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 and 24. Now as you can see, all the lines bunched on there. It's much better than a liner. And if you just go wrap over twice before working back through the rear of the eye of the hook, that just keeps everything tight. And say, through the back of the hook, you must go through the back of the hook. And then pulling through, that will make your basic rig an inexpensive, consistent rig that will consistently catch carp, which is what it's all about. And what effects this has is the carp will suck that bait into his mouth when he's feeding, and what you want to see is when he ejects that hook bait is that your hook will turn into his mouth. And if you can imagine that circles his mouth and he's ejecting that through, that hook's turning. You see me just tie it and it's turning straight away. And if you can imagine that is inside the mouth of the carp, you've hooked that little fella and off he's running. Well, that was a better way of looking at it. And to just finish off our rig, prior to putting it out into the water, size 8 swivel. And we're going to do a 6-turn grinner knot, just to finish off. I normally have about a 6-inch hook link in total. I find that's a consistent, good length, whether PVA bagging, stringer, method. It's just something I'm happy with. I've caught a lot of fish on. Very simple knot. Just turn over 6 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get hold of the end of the line and put it through the loop you've got next to the swivel. Push them through. Now, like any mono, you do need a little piece of spit, just to make sure you don't get any burn and weaken the line. Just pull them together, push them along. And that is it. And basically, your rig is now complete. Next thing is we just need a carp.
When we think about hook baits for carp, one bait reigns supreme: the boilie. Go back in history and you'll discover all manner of concoctions and pastes recommended for use when carp fishing. But be in no doubt, the angling world changed forever in the 1970s thanks to the introduction of the boilie. We have Fred Wilton to thank for his pioneering work in the high nutritional value bait field, and the concept of ingredients like milk proteins, vitamins, minerals, flours and flavours bound together with eggs before boiling until they formed a hard skin on the outside. It was revolutionary stuff back then, considering many anglers were still using part-boiled potatoes or tinned cat and dog food as bait. Today, we take boilies for granted. They are available in every imaginable flavour and colouring, in every tackle shop in the country. Countless firms are churning out little round balls by the million, and so many boilies have been fed into carp waters in the last 3 decades that carp probably regard them as a naturally occurring bait. Where some naturally occurring food sources are seasonal by their nature, it's easily conceivable that some carp have seen boilies laying around on the lake bed every single day of their lives. On heavily stocked and intensively fished waters, it's likely that boilies alone make up a high proportion of the fish diet. Many anglers choose to make their own boilies to their own secret ingredients. All the top bait manufacturing companies offer base mixes, a balanced mix of ingredients such as bird seeds, fish meals and milk proteins, plus measured amounts of minerals and vitamins. The angler then decides upon their own level of additives, enhancers, supplements, colours and flavours to create a unique bait that the fish can recognise. Find a winning formula that the fish like, feed plenty of it in the water you're fishing over a period of time, and you can expect the fish to come looking for it. However, the process is somewhat hit and miss. We aren't all expert chefs, and the process can be messy and smelly, not a popular pastime in many kitchens. Fortunately, the top bait makers have applied their knowledge and experience to the problem and come up with the ultimate inconvenience baits: ready-made boilies. These can be frozen baits or preserved baits. Frozen baits have to be used within a short time of removing from the freezer and should never be refrozen. Preserved baits come straight off the shelf, and providing that you keep them dry, can be saved at the end of each season. A very economical way to use baits. Some anglers worry about the preservatives in boilies, believing that the fish will be put off by them, but they're exactly the same preservatives that are used in beer, bread and apples, yet we can't detect them, so why should the fish? Though boilies rule the roost, there are many other baits that carp love to eat. One of the simplest to use is plain old sweet corn, a bait that's resulted in the capture of no less than 2 British record carp in recent years. Sweet corn is regarded as a particle bait, and there are hundreds of these to choose from. Beans, seeds and pulses of every kind you can think of have resulted in the downfall of carp at one time or another. Properly prepared nuts also catch a lot of carp. The top 2 varieties are tiger nuts and peanuts. Care has to be taken with the preparation of nuts. Use only the best human-grade food varieties. Soak them for at least 24 hours and then boil for at least half an hour. Under-prepared nuts can kill fish by swelling up in the gut. Pellets are now more popular than ever, especially the trout and halibut pellets supplied to commercial fish farmers. Finally, you cannot ignore dog and cat biscuits in summer. Carp love to slurp down these floating baits when the water is warm. Fishing with a single boilie on the hook with no free offerings is an accepted way to tackle carp in winter, when a fish might eat only one bait each day. However, in summer, when fish appetites are keenest, you'll need to attract them to your swim and keep them occupied by feeding them. This can be done by throwing a handful of free offerings around your hook bait, say 10 or 20 free boilies around the one with a hook in it. Some anglers think nothing of introducing several hundred boilies, even several thousand at the start of a session, hoping to hold a shoal of feeding carp in their swims. fishing a little further out, it's still important to place free offerings close to the hook bait. Accuracy becomes more important the further out you fish. For short to medium range, a catapult is quite adequate. With practice, you can bait very accurately. Alternatively, you might learn to use a throwing stick. In the right hands, a throwing stick's a very accurate tool, but it does take time to acquire the skill.
It's only about 80 feet wrong.
Some anglers invest in bait boats, a controversial piece of equipment that floats out both your hook bait and the free offerings and deposits them exactly where required. An expensive option, but one that's devastatingly effective. A more skillful method is to use a spod. This is a plastic tube loaded with bait that's cast to the spot you are fishing. A buoyancy aid causes the spod to tip up and release the contents. Perhaps the easiest way to put a small amount of free offerings next to your hook bait is to employ a PVA bag. These bags are made from polyvinyl alcohol and dissolve in water. Fill one with free offerings, trout pellets are commonly used in this way, hook it on the end of your line and cast out. What could be easier? In a similar manner, several individual boilies can be mounted on a piece of PVA string or tape. The secret is to make sure you leave a gap in between the boilies to allow the water in and melt the tape. The trouble with baiting up in this way is that you're never sure if all the bait has been eaten. You can introduce more bait every hour, say, or after each run. But how long does it take 10 fish to eat 20 boilies? Could be hours, might be seconds. Indeed, one good-sized fish will easily eat that many baits on its own. A popular feeding tactic with carp anglers is to feed an alternative bait to boilies, commonly pellets or small seeds like hemp. The idea is to lay down a bed of tiny food particles that give off a scent trail to attract carp, but take a long time to find and eat. A pint of bait spread around a swim will keep a shoal of carp busy for a long time. If, during the feeding spell, a fish comes across an easy meal like a boilie, it's far more likely to snaffle it up than to keep searching for a grain of hemp or a tiny trout pellet.
Well, I don't think I've got a bad fish on here. I put my method mix out, wrapped it around the lead. I have one of those funny little bites, not a proper run, just a few beeps, and I do hit those. And it proves worthwhile hitting not just full runs. You can get the fish going and picking up just on a few beeps. So, and one problem here, I don't tend to back lead. It's something I don't like doing, but this time it has been to my disadvantage. It's a nice comment. But he has got himself snaffled round my line, but tend to find at Paddington that the fish go quite well underneath the rod tip, but have to be a tad careful here. I don't want to bring the other rod in, there's no point in really confusing the issue, but we'll get him in. Just keep the pressure up. Don't worry, just forget about the other rod. Right, nip one, pearl one there, but if we can get this fella in, it'll be worth re-tackling for it. He's not ready by a long way yet. So don't push that net, just draw the fish over the net. It's a lot safer. You'll tend to keep hold of a lot more fish that way. And he's in there. What a pickle. But fish on. That's the first double I've had today anyway, so I can't complain about that. It's a lovely fish. Right, fish safety, that's the most important thing. Just get the fella onto the mat, forget about the tangle of the line and sort him out. Taking a pop up in the bottom there. He's been feeding on the hemp. I've spotted hemp out, that's coming out of his mouth. Feeding on a method there. That's a good sign. Yeah, look. There's a piece of hemp. Brilliant bait, brilliant bait. Right, let's just get rid of all that mess and sort it out later. Yeah, it's going to go a nice double figure there. Probably about just over 11, nice fins on him. Not a bad start. So we've had 3 small ones so far, but that's certainly the bigger one. And we'd be lying if we didn't say we want the bigger ones, because we do. Got a good old tussle. Abuse my tackle here, but I do believe in fish safety, so I just want to get him back in now. And sort that mess out in my own sweet time. Yeah, good. Definitely a double. Might even go 12. Let's get him back in. These safety weight slings, brilliant bit of kit. Take the fish, put him on the mat, put him back in the water. Gonna have no problems just pushing him back to safety. Just using the padding to protect the fish. He's off out there.
Modern carp rigs normally result in the fish hooking themselves when they pick up the hook bait. You'll be left in little doubt as to what's happening if you've set up your alarms and indicators properly. Obviously, your rod should sit squarely in the jaws of the bite alarm, with the reel line touching the roller wheel or sensor. By moving the line slightly, you'll instantly be able to hear whether the alarm is engaged or not. With the bait runner engaged so that the reel is in free spool mode, a taking fish should lightly hook itself against the weight of the lead and bolt off in panic. This'll pull line from the reel and make the alarm sound. That's the theory anyway. Unfortunately, in practice, the fish has the option to swim towards you, and of course this won't pull any line from the reel or make the alarm sound. There's a simple and easy solution. Immediately behind the alarm, you must attach one of the many types of drop-back indicator. There are 3 popular models in common use. The first is the tethered bobbin style indicator. The better ones have adjustable weights, allowing you to counterbalance strong winds, drift, or for when fishing at long range. An adjustable line clip allows you to clip it onto the reel line, so that the bobbin will fall off when you pick up the rod to strike or recast. Now, if a fish picks up the hook bait and runs towards you, the bobbin will take up the slack and pull the line through the alarm, thus setting it off. The second, and probably most popular drop-back indicator of all, is the swing arm indicator. These fit onto the front rod rest or pod immediately beneath the bite alarm. The swing arm has a sliding counterbalance weight that enables you to accurately adjust the sensitivity of the resistance. The third choice is a spring arm type indicator. This is similar in many ways to the swing arm, but instead of a rigid arm, it has a quiver tip type arm that is constantly under tension. This indicator is ideal for fishing at long range. Bites from carp can range from screaming runs to a small movement of the indicator. Often you'll find on the heavily pressured waters that carp give very shy bites and hardly move the indicator at all. It pays to regard any positive indication as a bite and strike. As you pick up your rod, the indicator will pull free of the line, turn the reel handle to disengage the free spool mechanism, and sweep the rod back to set the hook properly. You must have your main clutch set properly at this stage so that it'll release line under a pressure below the breaking strain. You should now be attached to an angry carp. Playing a carp is no different to playing any other freshwater fish, except that it's probably bigger. Make sure the line remains tight at all times. Keep in contact with the fish. Try to keep your rod at a maximum of 90 degrees to the fish so that the action of the rod does the work and tires it out. If the fish kites round to the right, lay your rod horizontally to the left to draw it back towards your swim. If the fish heads left, you pull to the right. Take your time. Landing a fish isn't a race. Only bully a fish if you really have to, such as when they threaten to disappear into weed beds or snags. Even playing a big carp is usually plain sailing. If your clutch is adjusted to the right tension, it'll give you line should the fish explode into sudden action and take you unawares. The only real danger other than snags is when the fish comes into close range and you're ready to net it. You can easily cause the hook to fall out on a short line, so take care and be prepared to slacken off the clutch slightly. Whatever you do, don't go chasing the fish with your landing net. Get it in position in good time. Make sure it's sunk beneath the surface and gently draw the fish over the net, lifting it when the carp's nose almost touches the spreader block. The fish should now be yours. Drop the rod back on the rest or lay it off to one side. If you do this, make sure it's placed somewhere safe and doesn't get trodden on. Release the arms of the net from the spreader bar, roll them down to the fish, and you can now lift it onto your unhooking mat. Good anglers always have a container of water handy by their unhooking mat. It serves many purposes. Use it to wet the mat before laying the fish on it. In summer, a mat exposed to direct sunshine can get very hot enough to hurt a fish. So a good tip is to flip the mat over before placing a fish on it. This way it lays on the cool, shaded side. Make sure the mat is on a flat surface or the fish may slide off. Give it a few seconds to calm down before trying to unhook it. Just make sure it isn't laying on anything hard like your lead, and that the fins are flat to its body. If the carp is reluctant to settle down quietly, try covering its eyes with a damp sack or cloth. It pays to roll the fish over and remove the landing net from beneath it at this point, and ask a mate to put the net back together just in case you get another run. Pour some water over the fish to keep it damp, cool and calm. Only when the fish is calm should you attempt to remove the hook. Barbless or semi-barbless hooks are pretty easy to remove, and modern hooking rigs mean the hook is invariably near the front of the mouth, if not right in the lip or scissors. A small pair of artillery forceps makes hook removal quick, safe for both the fish and the angler, and efficient. When the hook is out, leave the forceps clamped to the hook so you know exactly where it is. This will reduce the chance of any accidents. At this stage, you may decide to weigh your fish. However, it's important now to start thinking about its welfare. Carp survive well out of water, providing they're kept wet. The monks transported them all over Europe in nothing more than damp sacks. Make sure everything that your fish comes into contact with is pre-wetted. Before weighing your fish, you need to wet the weigh sling and zero the scales. This is a job you can do before you even get a run, so be prepared. If you do this, make sure you check the scales are still zeroed. Slide the fish into the sling while it's still on the mat and hook the handles over the scales. Scales should be suspended from the top and not held by the sides, as this can give a false reading. A good tip is to use the landing net pole as a crook. Slip the spreader block under the scales handle and the bottom of the pole on the ground. This distributes the weight better and makes the job of accurate reading a lot easier.
Take the fish up and put it back on the mat.
nice linear, probably about 11.5 pound.
Most anglers like to take a picture of the fish they catch, and it's worth thinking about how and where you're going to take the photo long before you actually catch one. Good photos don't just happen, they're planned. If you want to keep the water you're fishing a secret, then it will pay you to work out a nondescript background, or use the back of your bivvy, umbrella as a backdrop. Bushes and foliage are always worth using, because it makes your fish the focus of attraction. Make sure there's no litter lying around. The background should be tidy. It pays to pop the fish in a carp sack or retain it in the landing net for a few minutes while you prepare for the photos. Get whoever is going to take the pictures to practice with you in the exact position you're going to take the shot. That way they can frame up the shot and make sure it looks good. Only when all this is done should you bring the fish and lay it on the unhooking mat. Be confident when you pick up the fish. Place a hand under the chest with fingers either side of the pectoral fin that's nearest to the camera. The other hand should support the wrist of the tail, ideally with fingers each side of the anal fin. This gives a fish good balance, and you can get the nearest thing there is to a secure grip. When you pick up the fish, have someone pour water over it. This will remove any bits of grass from its flanks and make it shine. Watch out for shadows falling on you or the fish, and if you're wearing a peaked cap, use fill-in flash so that your eyes can be seen. One final thing to consider. Make sure you take pictures of both sides of the fish, especially if it's a mirror carp, and don't skimp on film. Take plenty of shots to make sure you get the result you want. When the photos are done, you now need to get the fish back into the water. Don't just pick it up and stroll over to the edge of the lake. If the fish starts to flap or you trip up, the carp could be seriously hurt. Use the weigh sling, a sack or the landing net and keep the fish close to the ground. Then if you have an accident, it's unlikely to come to any harm. Give some thought to where you're returning the fish. Try and find a margin that's deep enough to cover it so it doesn't have to scrape its flanks or belly on the lake bed in order to swim off. If the margins are shallow, get your shoes off, roll up the trouser legs and paddle out until you find enough depth. If the fish is reluctant to swim off straight away, hold it upright and nurse it until it regains its breath. It pays to remember that it's just lost a hard fight and then been kept out of the water for a while. We all have a duty to the fish we catch, to look after them and return them to the water unharmed.
Just got to hit right onto that D spot there. Got the fish rising, just about right. Carl is acting as my man of the moment, shooting out the pellets for me. This is my way of fishing. Right. Total pleasure. I'm fishing a dry line with 11-pound Fox Illusion to a size 8 fine hook and a cork ball. Cork ball with a small hole pinch through it and the hook piercing it, and then absolutely covering it in Esterbray spray. One of Bob Baker at Richworth's little inventions, and I swear to you it works. This is the most effective way at Pallington I've seen fish caught, and luckily I'm the only person that can actually fly fish, so it works quite well. Yeah, conditions aren't exactly super. I'm trying to get just in that area, that triangular area, where you can see the fish moving around. You shoot some more out for us, Carl.
I try to anyway.
That's a spot. I'm a little bit too far out. You can see where they are. They're spooky. It's weird wind conditions we got here. Not my favourite. Almost northeasterly. There's a fella. Keep going. Come to me. I reckon I'm 3 or 4 foot too far out. Let's bring it back in. I'm not going to waste my time. I have seen them go here absolutely incredibly. My best, as I said, I think, has been 9.5 an hour on this method, in this exact spot. There you go, that's the fella, hopefully.
That should drift in, shouldn't it?
And 5 of those fish were doubles.
See that one quite a lot on the edge?
Yeah. There you go. That's the fella. Underneath the bushes, this is my one problem up here. Got a lot of roots in there. Strip the line in. Get the line fast because he's coming towards me. Right in he's coming. That's a bend in the rod. There's no £3 test curve. Not that I'm knocking it, but I do enjoy this. This is a real rush, especially when we get them going. This is where I nip one. Look at that beautiful little linear. I've had them up to just over 14 on this, so it is a good method. That cork ball with estuary all over it just sends them wild, and they actually take the ball right down their throat, and it is incredible.
I don't know what you're talking about, the cork ball being covered, more like us because they're win.
There you go, mate. Well done. Thanks, Carl. Not the biggest, but I'll tell you what, they really go. And that's what it is. Gives you the shakes every time I do it. Every time you see that mouth come up, suck on that ball, and away. It's just all power. Cheers, Carl. Hopefully you don't spat the ball out. I'll show you what I mean. And you spat the actual cork. The cork has actually come out, but he's hit that so hard on the side there. Okay, what are you going to say? That's a small fish. A little bit of spawn damage. What's he going to go, 6 or 7? But on a fly rod, you know, that is fun. That is serious, serious fun. I'll get 20. I will get that 20. I know what'll happen. You may laugh.
No, mate.
But look at that linear pattern.
It's a lovely fish, definitely.
It's a cracker. We'll pop straight on back in. Don't tell his friends. I'm certain we're going to get quite a few more out of there. Hello, John. That's a cracking common. What was that one, John?
Off the biscuit.
What, dog biscuit?
Cat biscuit.
Cat biscuit. It's good fish. Good double. You bring him to me. Got him. Well done, mate.
What do you reckon? 17?
It's going to be up towards. Hang on. It's 15, I reckon. I'm going to give it 15. That is a cracking fish, John. That is beautiful colour.
Well done.
That really is. Listen there.
I've been feeding them all afternoon.
That is a beautiful.
Nice looking fish for me.
That is an absolute
Oh yeah.
beauty. I'll do the honours here, mate. John, you do know how to fish. Look at that curve.
What?
That has never,
that what it was
hardly
at?
ever. No, it's looked beautifully in there, but that fish has hardly ever been caught.
What do you reckon about?
I go 15,
15.
16, possibly.
I don't know.
Go on,
Should
get those scales, yeah. that is what we're on about here. There's some cracking fish. That is a perfect colour. You've got to say, I've got to be proud, haven't I? They're my fish.
14.6, 14.7.
Bigger than that.
Well, you're only half a pound out.
Pop it back.
You're going to do the honours?
Would you want me to pop it back?
Yeah, just slip it down here. John, I'll come over here, way. That's your line there. The hazards.
The biggest fish ever.
You've got them going quite well up here, have you?
Yeah. But they're getting a bit bored out of wood.
14.6. And what tackle is that, John? £8 line?
£8 line.
That's what I mean. Is
And whoever said you were cheap,
thanks
John?
very much.
Whoever said you were cheap? Well, I'm not complaining. It's a nice 14.6 from John there. Another surface fisherman, different method. It's good to see. It's good to see somebody fishing a little bit differently. We all love fishing, but you've got to go. This wind is turning into a nightmare, but we've still got there. Carl's still down there, doing the business, so to speak, for me. Get out there.
Good shot,
That's
that's
pretty damn good for a beginner. No, it's not the easiest thing in the world, I must admit. But I have been fly fishing for 11 years, so... And my method certainly isn't perfect. But I don't know, it's just getting it out there, seeing that mouth come up, and know that you've done it. You know, you're not waiting, it's... Sometimes we all get bored fishing. It's the truth, and at least here I'm always on the go.
Just that one.
Yeah, I saw him, Carl. I'll bring him in.
Do you want some more in there?
Get him in there. Yeah.
See if I can get a few scattered around.
We got this northeasterly here is an absolute pain. I'll have the tree in a minute, all myself. Tree first, please. Gotta really try and whack it out above the wind and then hip it out. Well, it's with the munchies, it's not where I want it. It's not in my danger. Look at that fella there. They're right in tight. They want it, but they're not coming out at the moment.
Not the most idyllic of conditions, is it really? Got the ducks.
Have confidence in my son.
It's not easy to predict what the future holds for carp angling as a sport. In terms of significant development on the bait front, the major innovations such as boilies, HNV baits, mass particle baiting and so on came during the 1970s, a decade that also saw the widespread introduction of the semi-fixed bolt rig and the hair rig. Practically everything since then has been a case of refinement and variations on a theme. Indeed, it's unlikely that we're going to see massive improvements in bait technology, nor is it anticipated that someone might invent a revolutionary way of presenting baits. There'll always be room for the innovative thinker to refine things, be that on the bait front or the tackle front. Rods and reels have never been better. Or cheaper for that matter. Where only a few years ago anglers had to use their own ingenuity to make their own accessories, there's practically nothing that can't be bought over the counter in one of the specialist carp shops. One interesting development has been in the proliferation of carp matches. Where once the sport was the domain of the insular single-minded loner, we now see an element of competition entering the sport. 36 and 48-hour competitions take place all over the UK and Europe throughout the warmer months. We already have UK championships, European and World Championships. This branch of the sport is proving very popular and should continue to flourish. In terms of the availability of carp fishing, we're definitely seeing a geographical spread that was not previously envisaged. Most of our major river systems now have a healthy carp population, as do the canals. We are seeing anglers targeting this type of venue and coming up with remarkable results. The proliferation of commercial fisheries, stuffed as they are with small carp, is resulting in a surfeit of waters holding a massive head of double-figure carp, too big for the match angler, too small for the dedicated big fish hunter. The opportunity to create all-action doubles waters is upon us, and I can see enterprising commercial fishery owners targeting the carp angler with spectacular results. There's an army of anglers out there who will pay good money to be able to catch 6, 10, perhaps even 20 good-sized carp in a day. However we look at it, the future is rosy. Carp were once described in the American Angler's Bible, in Fisherman magazine, as the world's greatest sport fish. Thousands of anglers across the world would agree. It's time for you to join them.
Oh, there she is, just in the margins. I've got to be careful because Simon's up there, just flicking his fly rod out to those trees again. And get yourself. Can I do that again without going? Oh. Oh.
And they love it. Just keep on spraying it frequently as well. When you like bring your new line in after casting out 4 or 5 times.
Careful not to poke cameraman in head with rod. Always useful. Got.
You alright over there, Carl? We don't have lifeboats at Paddington.
And I'm going to call it quits. It's been a hell of a session. A hell of a session. Last little look from the other side. Look at the sun. And I have to say it, another stunning fish for Team Daiwa. Nice one, John. Okay.